Are you looking to ditch the 9 to 5 job and achieve financial freedom via real estate? I'm going to show you the simple path to do so. My name is Ariel Herrera, your fellow data scientist with Tech and Real Estate channel, where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. This is the type of content that you want to see more of. Please like this video and don't forget to subscribe. All right, let's get started. Time and time again, I hear newbies that are just confused on how to get started in real estate. They know that they don't fit into the 9 to 5 world. They want to leave their job for various reasons. They see real estate as a golden opportunity to do so and to allow them to become a business owner. However, they start to read books, listen to podcasts, watch videos, and become overwhelmed with all the decisions that are out there. So, I put this guide together just as a quick overview of how to become a real estate investor if you are a beginner, and even if you already are one, how to look at endgame, your end goals to achieve financial freedom. So, to start, I've broken out the investor's journey into 3 main steps: beginner, intermediate, and seasoned. So, you probably have heard of a lot of different terms like creative financing, private money, different deals like fixer uppers, or adding an ADU. It really becomes confusing knowing where do you place each of these strategies and financing types within your investor journey. Well, to put it simply, as a beginner, I suggest your focus should be low risk, low effort. You're learning the game. You're going to get your first property, understand how to work with tenants, how to set up certain systems. And at this stage, my biggest suggestion is to go one of 2 ways. Traditional, so you have an investment property where you put 20% down, maybe it's a single family home, 3 bed, 2 bath, and you rent that out for a 1 year lease. Second strategy, house hacking. This is my favorite strategy and one that I've done 3 times. You live in a property, you have tenants, maybe this is a friend or it's a relative or even a stranger. They live with you and help to offset your costs so that you could save even more money for the next property. You live in this property for 1 year and then you fully rent it out afterwards and do the same thing again. Usually, this strategy works within your local area because you have a lot of local knowledge. So, for my example, I use New Jersey as my area to first house hack. And I went through conventional financing. So, going through a bank like PNC, Chase, or you can go to an even more local bank. After you get this strategy down several times, have a couple properties under your belt, that's when I suggest going into this intermediate phase of investing. At this stage, you have more knowledge, you're more equipped, and you're ready to scale. So you start looking at more advanced methods like short term rental, adding an ADU, fixer uppers. Still looking at residential property, you're most likely looking out of state because in your backyard, there may not be as many cash flowing deals. And thus, you may also need to look at other financing strategies. Then, the end of your investor journey is now you're seasoned. You likely have achieved financial freedom, but you have some bad eggs in your portfolio. So, this is your chance to scale up, go into better neighborhoods, more units that may offset a lot of the risks that you're currently facing. Now that we've outlined the investor's journey, this is a quick example of how it looks. You start as a beginner, maybe doing a house hack, then you get comfortable and you decide to do maybe value add. So this is an example of 2 properties in South Amboy, New Jersey. You could see that second one, value add, probably needs to have the rugs replaced. And we could see a radiator there, so probably needs some central air. So maybe at this stage, you're comfortable with doing these types of fixes. Then the last stage, you're seasoned. Maybe you're taking these properties that you previously had purchased, sell them and package them now to be able to afford, say, a 5 unit building that's brand new. So how do you start this journey? Well, it's actually pretty simple. There's 10 steps, and I'm going to walk you through them. First being defining your why for financial freedom. I know this sounds pretty simple, but trust me, you will have ups and downs in your journey. And if you don't know the real reason why you're doing this, you will face the possibility of quitting, which I don't want you to do. So for me, my financial freedom reason is that I want the ability to travel, not just within a 2 week time frame when it's paid off, pay time off, but whenever I see fit. I want the ability to teach full time, teach students coding as well, and to be a present parent. So now that I've defined my why for financial freedom, next is setting my baseline, my real estate formula. Once you set this, the rest of the journey becomes so much easier. There's 4 components: your monthly goal, the time you want to achieve it, how much cash flow you need by unit or property, depending if you're doing all single family, and the number of units or properties that you need. For each of these types, there's different types of financial freedom, meaning you could live very conservatively, maybe in a rural area where costs are really low and maybe you don't travel as often. Comfortable living, you're probably maintaining a similar lifestyle that you do today. And abundant living, maybe you're traveling half the year and spending a lot of money. In my instance, I decided that I needed 10,000 per month to be comfortable. So comfortable where I could retire from my W-2 job. And the time that I wanted to achieve this was in 15 years. So at the time, I was 25 years old, and my goal was to retire from the W-2 job. The next stage of setting our real estate target is understanding what our cash flow aggressiveness will be. Depending on the type of property you're looking for, you can seek more passive cash flow, where maybe it's completely turnkey property, you're not making any fixes, but because of that, and maybe it's already in a good neighborhood, it may not cash flow as much, but it's a little bit more steady. Then there's value add, and you could also even go more aggressive in terms of how you're adding value to a property to increase your cash flow. So for my instance, I wanted to go pretty much in the middle here, and I wanted to achieve $500 per month in cash flow per unit. Now that I have the number of my target goal as well as per unit goal, then you can kind of start to see how you could do that by mixing and matching types of properties that you can acquire. So in my head, I thought if I want to achieve the 10,000 a month, I would need to acquire 10 single family homes and 5 duplexes to total 20 units within my 15-year span. I know I threw a lot of numbers at you, but let's just wrap this up and you could see what this looks like end to end. The FI outline, financial independence outline. I need to have 10,000 a month in passive income. I want to complete this in 15 years. I would need $500 per month in average cash flow per unit. Now, just by doing the math here, 10,000 divided by 500, I know that I need 20 units to achieve my financial goal. That sometimes is the hardest bump of the road of just understanding what your goal should be. And here I've been able to do that within the 4 steps. And my 5th step here is where I start to kind of get creative. There's different ways I can go about it. But I set for myself that I want to buy 1 single family house every single year for my first 10 years in my investment journey, and then buy 5 duplexes in those last 5 years to achieve 20 units in total. And you could see with this chart that there's pretty much a linear progression going from the first 10 years, but then it kind of spikes up, being a little bit more rapid in terms of acquirement from 2028 and on. So this was my original goal. As always, there could be shifts, but it's really important for you to set this outline. Even if you are an investor that has a couple of properties under your belt, this will just make it very, very clear as to what your goal is and how long you have to achieve it. So now that you have your baseline of your goals, now it's time to select a market. Where are you going to be purchasing these properties? As a beginner, this is what I suggest. There's 2 parts here: setting your market criteria and choosing 2 to 3 local areas. If you're on the intermediate side, at this stage, you're probably already looking off. If you are already an intermediate investor, local areas may not be as fruitful for you, so you may be looking out of state. So starting with the first part, setting our market criteria. When I started, there were several criteria that I was looking for. An appreciating market. Since I was starting investing, I knew that I can kind of ride the wave of just appreciation in real estate. So I was looking for areas where sale price was increasing year over year. I also wanted to look for commuter-friendly areas. Now, being from New Jersey, I knew how valuable it was to be able to have a 1-hour commute into New York City. People would move and change their lifestyle plans around this. This is where the local knowledge becomes very valuable. I wanted to invest and live in an area that was 10 minutes from a train station and less than 1 hour commute to New York City. I was also looking for neighborhood pride. I wanted to make sure there was a higher ratio of ownership, people that own the properties versus tenants, because typically homeowners will be on top of, say, maintaining a lawn and the appearance of the overall community. I was also looking for new development. This kind of goes in hand with investing in my 20s and being comfortable with riding this out and holding a property for a long time. I want to see an area that would appreciate, and thus I wanted to look for additional transportation that was possibly within the area I wanted to invest in, like a ferry. And also good school system. Good school systems usually trickle into other positive attributes within a neighborhood. I initially had great school system, but as I started to research, I realized that great school systems near train stations usually don't happen. Those two neighborhoods don't really mix. So I just lowered my standard a bit to have school rating at least above a 3. So now that I have my market criteria and I'm local to New Jersey, I know that there are 3 towns that are meeting my criteria. Also, just doing some Google searches as well for news articles. Woodbridge, New Jersey, South Amboy, New Jersey, and Matawan, New Jersey. South Amboy became really interesting to me because they were developing a ferry, but it was the least developed of the 3 towns, meaning they had not as big of a downtown presence, but I still added it as one of my areas that I could invest in. So now that I have my 3 markets that I'm interested in, I set up my buy box. What is the type of property that I'm looking for? So I start to view some of these properties just looking online, and I see that mostly these single family homes that are a little more affordable and by the train station are between 200 310K. And I go get pre-approved. I know I can afford this. So this is my price range in my buy box. I'm looking for single family homes. I wanted duplex, but it was out of my price range. So single family would have to do. Bedrooms at least 2, bathrooms at least 1 full shower bathroom, and if there was more, that's fine. Living square footage at least 1,000. I wanted some space there. And then because my strategy, if we go back a little bit here, is that I'm looking for value add, so properties that could have a little bit more in cash flow. I add this little metric here, which is ratio of beds to living square footage. So essentially, I want to be able to, maybe not now, but in the future, add a bedroom to the property. That can increase my cash flow and help me achieve financial freedom faster. So to do this, I want to see if there's maybe an extra nook, a bedroom that's too large that I could split, or a dining room. To do this by the numbers, I created a quick calculation, bedroom to square footage ratio, and knowing the area, I knew that at least if there was 500 living square feet to each number of bedrooms in the property, there was likely space to add a bedroom. So now that I have my buy box, I start to track it, and I could see for, say, one of the markets, South Amboy, how many properties are in my buy box, what's the average list price, and days on market. It's really important to track each of these 3 things. Days on market will tell you how competitive your market is. If I start to see this drop, then I know, ooh, these properties are coming off the market faster. I may have more competition. I may have to make an offer at list price. But if I see these properties staying on market longer, that means buyer has more control. Maybe I can lowball an offer and get an even better deal. So step 6, analyze your deals. So now you have your buy box, it's set, and you have inflow coming in likely to your email. And you'll have a buy box alert of some sort that will then show you if there's a property that's new on market or maybe a price drop. So in this case, this is a property with a price drop. The next step here is putting it into a spreadsheet, analyzing the deal, and seeing if the numbers would make it work, if it meets your criteria in terms of cash flow. I'll detail a little bit more of how to automate this process a little bit better, especially for the spreadsheet part, because trust me, it can get tedious. I was able to do it to an extent in my first go around because the markets in New Jersey were very small, but it could become very overwhelming if you're looking at a large city. But let's say that you have your buy box, your alerts, and now what is the next steps? You're making an offer. Make sure you're pre-approved, you view different properties, and ultimately you make an offer on it. Now, once you make an offer, are you stuck? Can you, is that it? Like you're committed to this property? No, there's a lot of contingencies in play. I always say go make an offer as much as possible. And then once you're under contract, then you can decide, if the property maybe worked well in the numbers, but there's some hidden things that you didn't know about that come up in the inspection and ultimately can't move forward. But hopefully you can move forward and you close the deal. Step 9 is listing this property. So now you put the property, say, on Zillow, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, all free platforms, so that other prospective tenants can see that your property is available for rent. You'll show this property. You can either have an agent show it or show it yourself. I personally really enjoy doing it, especially for house hacks, because I know all about the property. I lived in it for a year, and it makes it really fun to talk about it, the property, and also get to meet the tenants. So now I select the tenant, create and sign a lease, which you could do for free on Zillow, and provide the keys. Last step there, which trips some people up surprisingly, but it's actually really simple, is setting up the monthly payment for your tenant to pay you every month for rent. You could do it for free on Zillow Rental Manager, apartments.com, and Azebo. I personally like doing it on the last two for that part because Zillow Rental Manager only allows one checking account. So if you have 3 properties, it's all going to mix into one checking account when you're receiving rent, which I don't really like. So the last two, I would say, are better in that aspect. Step number 10. So now that you've gotten your property, you've rented it out, you put it into a spreadsheet and you track it. You want to track your equity and your cash flow. Companies like Stessa allow you to do this, where you can enter in your property and then track Zestimate as well as other estimates each month. And we track equity is so that we can possibly tap into those funds later in the intermediate stage. And then cash flow helps us to see how close we are to our goal. Now that we feel comfortable with the end-to-end process, how do we actually continue this until we achieve financial freedom? Well, now at the intermediate phase, maybe it's 3 years later. So my market in South Amboy, let's say that I've house hacked 3 times now in the same market. And I've had some good success. My cash flow has increased on year 1 and year 2 properties. And overall, my total cash flow is $1,000. So I'm already 10% tied to financial independence, which is great. But maybe at this stage, I'm like, all right, I understand real estate. I don't know if I want to do the whole 15 years until I actually leave my W-2. I think I could do it earlier. So at this stage is when you could actually begin to scale. So you start to reassess your strategy. How do you scale and be faster to achieve properties? Can you get more financing? So maybe your property has appreciated. You can look to refinance or get a HELOC to have more cash available for other deals. You could look to partner with others or use other people's money, which is private money and joint ventures. You could also look at creative financing too, like seller financing. So now that you start to understand more of these financing strategies, your next stage is, well, how do you find cash flowing deals, right? My backyard neighborhood may not be the best. Going out of state will probably find better cash flowing properties. And how can you maximize your investment? So maybe you are buying turnkey properties that are ready to. This is the opportunity to really be a team of contractors so that they can help you to possibly fix up your property so that you add more value and even more cash flow. You're shifting from low risk to maybe being slightly more risky, but you're really more being more strategic to maximize each investment property that you purchase going forward. You need to think about what is the best tool available for what I want to do today. Well, if you're doing short-term rentals, you want to look at AirDNA so that you can more accurately analyze your market and understand the different rates as to how much a property is renting per night so you can assess cash flow more accurately. The manual stuff you have been doing in the past will not cut it at this stage. If you want to be fast, if you want to treat real estate as a business, and if you want to achieve financial freedom fast, you need to use a software. Great. So now let's imagine that you've taken this intermediate stage to really scale up. You use a software, you probably build your own team in essence, and now it's 3 years later and your portfolio has expanded. My portfolio has now gone out of state. Tampa and Pensacola, Florida. And we see new strategies here, MTR and STR, medium term rentals and short term rentals. Medium term rentals could be to nurses or to other business folks that are staying in an area for maybe 1, 3, 6 months. Short term rental, as we know, like VRBO or Airbnb, we can have stays anywhere from a day to, again, several months. So let's imagine that I've dived into this strategy. My cash flow is a lot higher for these strategies, and I've achieved financial freedom only 3 years later. Maybe I've done different creative financing strategies to acquire these properties, but ultimately I have hit $10,000 in total cash flow. So, do we stop here? Do we just say, all right, great, I've achieved it, I'm done? No. The next step is to reassess your portfolio. You want to see what properties are low performing or risky. So, here, let's say that my properties that I first acquired in my house hacking, two of them have really high tenant turnover. Maybe it's based on where they're located within the area, or maybe it's because there's a lot of fixes to the property and tenants are frustrated that there's always something being worked on. Then, those first couple properties in Tampa, I assess them and I see, ooh, I'm going to have to redo the roof on each one of these for the next 5 years. Those are going to eat into my cash flow costs. So by assessing this, we could then tell ourselves, might be better to sell and scale up. This is where 1031 exchange comes into play. You can take the properties that you previously had purchased, sell them, and put them into a like asset, like a bigger property. So now look at our portfolio. We've actually have less properties than we did before. However, we've taken those other 5 or 6 properties that we've had, sold them, and scaled up to a 16 unit in Savannah, Georgia. It's traditional rental and it has $3,500 in cash flow. So we have consolidated our portfolio, we've removed headaches, and we've been able to scale up all in one swoop. And at this stage, we can retire. Life is good. We can go to the beach, we can travel, we can spend time with loved ones. We've achieved financial freedom. So I hope this has been useful to help you have that mind frame as you're starting out in your journey, or if you've already started, as to what end game could be. It really is overwhelming sometimes listening to so many different strategies, so many different ways of going about it. But if you can have a clear focus, set your goal for the long run, and just work your way slowly there, you can too achieve financial freedom. So, what are the next steps? Make sure that you set your financial freedom goal, why you're doing it, and how you're going to achieve it, and get started. If you have any questions on getting started that I didn't cover here, feel free to email me. We can also jump on a call. And if you want to see more content like this, please let me know. I'm thinking about maybe putting this into some like Notion page where I can also link out to different resources to use at each of those 10 steps. Let me know in the comments.